Hello, welcome back. I'm reading chapter 13, Something's Cooking. Connor and his friends returned to the Calvin Coolidge Express tunnel beneath the New York Public Library. Jack found an old lantern on the unfinished platform along with some matches and lit it so they could see where they were going. Bree used a compass app on her phone to be certain which direction was north. The gang ran up the abandoned subway tunnel as fast as they could toward Central Park, hoping and praying they would find a way into it. Strangely, only when Goldilocks started running did Hero finally settle down and go to sleep. The more tense and bumpy the situation, the more relaxed the infant became. His Aunt Red, however, was fussing enough for the both of them. The further they ran down through the tunnel, the more tears ran down her face. "Red, why are you crying?" Bree asked. "Physical exertion," Red confessed. "It never agrees with me." After over a mile and a half of spotting nothing in the tunnel but bricks and the occasional rat, Connor and his friends finally arrived at another unfinished platform. The words Central Park were written in chalk on the wall beside it. "We're here," Connor said. "Does anyone see a hatch to crawl through?" Jack raised the lantern toward the ceiling and they saw a circular door that opened inward. Connor found a ladder on the side of the platform and positioned it directly below the door. He climbed the ladder and pulled on the door's handle, but it wouldn't open. "The door's bolted shut," he said. "We're going to need a jackhammer or something powerful to get through this." Bree, Jack, Goldilocks, and Red looked around the platform but didn't find anything except for some rope and masking tape. Their chances of getting through the door seemed very slim. Red, defeated, took a seat on the edge of the platform and pouted. "So we just ran a mile down a filthy, smelly tunnel for nothing," she said, and sprayed her Febreze in the air around her. "This rescue mission isn't going very well, is it?" The others walked around the platform as they tried to think of alternative ways into the park. Bree, however, stood very still and her eyes never moved from Red. An idea blossomed in her mind and a smirk grew across her face. "Red, can I borrow your Febreze?" she asked. Before Red had a chance to answer, Bree snatched the can of air freshener out of the Queen's hand. She picked up a roll of masking tape and plucked a long strand of twine from the rope and climbed the ladder. Bree then taped the can of Febreze to the circular door near the bolts, keeping it shut. She broke off the tip of the canister and stuck the twine down the tube. "Does anyone have a lighter?" she asked. Jack handed her the matches he found on the previous platform. Bree lit a match and set the loose end of the twine on fire. Connor climbed halfway up the ladder to take a closer look at whatever contraption she was making. "Bree, what are you doing?" he asked. "Making a bomb," Bree said casually. "We might want to take cover. Quickly!" Jack, Goldilocks, and Red jumped off the platform and ducked into the tunnel. Bree and Connor hurried down the ladder and joined the others. The flame flickered up the twine and into the can of Febreze, and bam! The canister exploded and the circular door fell from the ceiling. "I saved the day!" Red cheered and applauded herself. Jack and Goldilocks rolled their eyes and gave Bree a congratulatory pat on the back. Connor just stared at her with his mouth hanging open. "What?" Bree asked. "You just built a bomb," Connor said in shock. "And?" "I just realized what a horrible influence you are," he said. Bree shrugged. "At least it smells better down here." The gang returned to the platform and stared up at the fresh hole in the ceiling. The explosion appeared to have blown through a layer of dirt and grass above the door. Connor climbed the ladder and crawled through the hole, and his friends followed close behind him. Had Connor not known Central Park was above them, he would have thought they were entering up the forest in the fairy tale world. He emerged from the tunnel at the bottom of a grassy hill sprinkled with large boulders. New York City skyscrapers were barely visible behind all the trees surrounding the area. Connor looked up and saw Alex's magical shield stretching across the night sky like a jiggling, sparkling dome. For whatever reason, Connor's friends were taking their time climbing up from the tunnel. It took Bree, Jack, and Goldilocks a couple of minutes to each surface into the park, and almost 5 minutes passed before Red joined them above ground. Connor thought this was a little peculiar given the urgency of the situation. "About time, Red," he said. "What are you talking about?" Red asked. "I was right behind you." "It doesn't matter," he said. "Let's search the park and find where the witches went. They could be anywhere or disguised as anything, so everyone keep a sharp eye out. Speak up if you see something even remotely suspicious." His friends nodded and they formed a tight circle just as they had when searching the library. They found a cement path beside the grassy hill and cautiously followed it deeper into the park. Central Park was enormous, and each time they passed a new directory, they were shocked by how little ground they'd covered since the previous one. Every now and then they would step through a clearing and see the city skyline peering above the trees, but other than the twinkling buildings, they found nothing out of the ordinary. There wasn't a witch or a scout in sight. Connor found a discarded map on the ground and used it to navigate the labyrinth of pathways snaking through the park. They agreed that the witches had most likely retreated to the heart of the park after battling the Marines, so Connor guided his friends down a trail leading to the park center. The closer they got to the park's core, the more densely the air around was filled with smoke and a rich aroma. Does anyone else smell that? Jack asked. Yes, Goldilocks said. It smells like gingerbread, fresh gingerbread. The witches are probably building gingerbread houses to lure the Boy and Girl Scouts of America, Bree said. If so, that is such a witch cliche, Red said. Not all witches are cannibals, though, Connor said. Whatever they're cooking, I don't think it's houses. The group eventually came to a large fountain on the edge of a small lake. The fountain had a wide, circular pool of shallow water and an angel statue perched on top. It faced an impressive terrace that was flanked by 2 enormous staircases. Underneath the terrace was a spacious walkway that was lined with arches and pillars. The area looked like a piece of Rome. What is this place? Jack asked. The Bethesda Fountain and Terrace, Connor read from the map. It's pretty iconic, Bree said. They use it a lot of TV shows and movies. New York is such a strange place, Red said. One minute I'm completely repulsed, and the next I feel right at home. Did the old York inspire such mood swings? Before Connor could answer her, he was distracted by something moving underneath the Bethesda terrace. A thin woman wearing a headband and a bright pink tank top and matching sneakers was peeking out from behind one of the pillars in the walkway. The woman nervously eyed the park around them and frantically gestured for Connor and his friends to join her. Psst, she whispered. Come here, quick! From the way she was dressed, Connor assumed the woman was a native of the other world. Still, he and his friends approached the walkway with the utmost caution. The woman in pink led them into the walkway, and they discovered she wasn't alone. A man in a headband, a green tank top, and matching tennis shoes was hiding behind another pillar. Another man wearing a blue helmet and a black biker shorts was ducking behind a trash can. A third man in a janitor's uniform was crouched in the corner and staring into space with his hands over his head. It isn't safe to be wandering around the park in the open like that, the woman in pink told them. If they find you, they'll capture you and take you back to their base. You must be talking about the witches, Connor said. Do you know which part of the park their base is in? They're gathered somewhere between the lake and the reservoir. On the great lawn, I suspect, the man in green said. But they search the park every couple of hours to look for escapees. What are you guys doing in the park so late? Bree asked. My husband and I were out for a late jog, the woman in pink explained. We used the 79th Street Traverse as a shortcut to get home, and that's when the shield went up. We went to get through it, but it zapped us. She and her husband showed Connor and his friends the burn marks covering their arms. We searched the park for help and saw the witches wandering through it, the man in green said. So we hid in Belvedere Castle, and that's when we met him. He nodded to the janitor in the corner. I was working a night shift at the castle, the janitor said. We tried calling the police but couldn't get a signal or a dial tone from any of the phones. When the coast was clear, the 3 of us made a quick dash to the tavern on the green. And that's where they met me, the biker said. My friends and I were cycling around the perimeter of the park and also took a shortcut to get home. After the shield went up, we hid from the witches in Tavern on the Green with other people who got trapped in the park. We thought we were safe, but there eventually they found us. We were the only 4 who escaped. The rest were captured and taken to the witch's base, the woman in pink said. We've been hiding under the terrace ever since. The janitor began to laugh, but not because he was amused. He started rocking back and forth as if he were on the verge of losing his sanity. You know, the guy I replaced was fired for making wild claims about magical things in the park, he said. We all thought old Rusty was just insane, and now here I am, cowering like a toddler from a bunch of witches. Funny how the tables have turned. The people under the terrace looked exhausted, and they trembled as they spoke. Obviously, they'd been through quite an ordeal, but something about their story wasn't adding up. You guys make it seem like you've been here for days, Connor said. The witches have only been in the park for an hour at most. How have you covered that much ground? The joggers, the biker, and the janitor all exchanged bewildered looks. Sweetie, we have been here for days, the woman in pink said. What? Said Connor. How is that possible? Ever since the shield went up, time in Central Park moved much slower than the rest of the city, the man in green said. All the clocks on Fifth Avenue have barely moved, and it's been 2 days since we last saw the sun. An hour inside the park is like a second outside of it, his wife said. Whenever we see people on the other side of the shield, they're barely moving. It's like they're stuck in slow motion. Connor felt like his heart had stopped beating. Now he understood why it had taken his friends so long to crawl out of the tunnel. Alex wasn't only shielding the park, she was altering it its time, too. Whatever the witches were up to, they had bought themselves plenty of time to get it done. Wait, why are you so surprised to hear this, the biker said. Haven't you been in the park for just as long? No, we just got here, Connor said. You mean there's a way out of the park, the janitor said and jumped to his feet. You've got to take us out there. I'm going to lose my mind if I have to stay here another. Quiet, Goldilocks whispered. Someone's approaching. Connor, his friends, and the escapees quickly hid behind the pillars in the walkway. They heard footsteps and soon 4 figures appeared in the distance. Rat Mary and Serpentina were escorting a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout to the Bethesda fountain. The witches pushed and kicked and called the scouts fallen names as they went. The children looked terrified and even more exhausted than the escapees under the terrace. They each carried 2 large wooden buckets and placed them in the fountain's pool. Now fill them up, you filthy hobgoblins, Rat Mary ordered, and hurry, the mistresses are waiting for the refreshments. The scouts followed her commands and filled their buckets with water from the fountain. Serpentina scanned the water with a peculiar expression. This doesn't look any better than the water in the lakes or the ponds, she hissed. The mistresses requested clean water. What the mistresses don't know won't hurt them, Rat Mary said. Besides, the Snow Queen and the Sea Witch promised us that life on the other world will be different. So far, it doesn't seem to be any different than back home. We're still doing all the work while they sit in their thrones and do nothing. You know, Mariana may have intentionally led us all to our deaths, but I'm starting to respect her, Serpentina said. She's probably back in the kingdoms, enjoying being the only... Even though no one made a sound under the terrace, both witches suddenly snapped their heads toward it. Connor, his friends, and the escapees all held their breath and tucked themselves as far as possible behind the pillars. I thought I heard something, Serpentina said. Probably more humans. Yuck, Rat Mary said. I looked forward to exterminating them all. There's the true vermin in this world. Should we round them up and take them back to the base? Serpentina said. No, we've done our task, Rat Mary said. We'll send another witch to come back for them. The scouts finished filling their buckets, which became so heavy the children could barely carry them. The witches shoved the scouts back to the direction they came from and disappeared into the park. The escapees under the terrace waited a couple of minutes before moving, just to make sure the witches were gone. That was a close one, the woman in pink said. Let's get out of here before the other witches come back and capture us. The group of escapees hurried through the walkway and tore away from the terrace. They climbed the flight of stairs leading to the path on higher ground and heard a loud pop from above them. They looked in terror to see Rat Mary glaring at them from the top of the stairs. The witch roared with laughter and exposed her sharp, tiny teeth. You didn't actually think we would leave you here, did you? She asked. The escapees turned around and ran back toward the terrace, but after another loud pop, Serpentina appeared and blocked their way. You aren't going anywhere, she roared. Say, I recognize some of you from our homeworld. Your friends and brother are of the Bailey girl. Oh my, the mistresses will be so pleased we captured you. We aren't coming quietly, Jack shouted. He raised his axe and Goldilocks raised her sword, but Rat Mary and Serpentina snapped their fingers and the weapons flew into the witch's hands. The baby Bjorn with Hero inside also unfastened itself from around Goldilocks, flew to Rat Mary, and wrapped around her torso. The witch looked down at the strange holster and was pleasantly surprised to find an infant attached to it. It's my lucky day, Rat Mary said. There are so many potions I've always wanted to make that require an infant as the main ingredient. No, Goldilocks yelled. She charged up the stairs to rescue her son, but Serpentina's long tongue wrapped around Goldilocks' legs and dragged her back down the steps. If you even think about hurting him, I'll teach you a new definition of pain, Goldilocks warned the witches. Rat Mary and Serpentina shared a menacing laugh. I sincerely doubt you'll get the chance, Rat Mary said. Not where you're going, at least. I'm going to stop the chapter there and continue on the next video. I'll see you guys then.